Alright, guys, you've got every time Daredevil faced Spider-Man. Should be good. This should be banging. They should have had some banging fights. So let's see.
Well, hello there. Spider-Man and Daredevil always had sort of a bromance in comics. They both operate on the street level, share a bunch of enemies throughout the years, and have the same struggles from time to time. And it's not a big surprise. Daredevil was created just 2 years after Spider-Man's debut in 1962. And the two met in Spider-Man's 16th issue already, right after the first appearances of Green Goblin, Mysterio, and Kraven the Hunter. So the two have known each other for a very long time, basically from the very beginning. And of course fought each other quite a few times too. So, I want to go back and find every single time Daredevil had the unfortune of facing Spider-Man, to see the story around it, and how the two heroes ended up resolving it in the end. And simply put, well, who actually won. I will only touch the main 616 Marvel Universe, but this could also serve as a nice reference to MCU's duo when they finally get to do some superhero work together. Well, hopefully. Regardless, let's start. The two Reds first fight in the very first issue they meet, obviously, and the story is quite short. Ringmaster, who has the power of hypnotism, and who I'm sure most people are not aware even existed as a villain, decides to hold a circus in the city. And to attract people to his show, he advertised that Spider-Man will be there, and Spider-Man actually finds out and goes there to entertain people. Why not, I guess. And of course Ringmaster sees this and hypnotizes everyone in the circus, Spider-Man included. The only problem with his plan though is that he had a blind man in the audience who quickly realized something was off. Matt immediately suits up and goes to break the hypnosis. And that's when Ringmaster orders Spider-Man to kill Daredevil and the fight ensues. Daredevil manages to evade Spidey and lands the first hit. But once it comes to brawling, Daredevil immediately realizes that he cannot match Spider-Man's strength and has to outthink him instead. Spider-Man on the other hand recognizes that Daredevil is a lot more agile than he thought as he keeps on missing his punches. And just a couple of panels later, Daredevil comes up with a plan and gets high on top, manages to outflip Spider-Man in his own acrobatic way, landing right behind Spidey and taking away Ringmaster's hypnotizing hat, which gets Spider-Man back to his senses. After which the villain is taken care of quite fast by the duo. So the first fight does not really have a clear winner.
Okay.
Daredevil simply needed to outmaneuver Spider-Man, who was dumbed down by Ringmaster, which he did quite fast. The two heroes.
Hey man, he outmaneuvers Spidey. I'm calling that a win, right? He's blind and outmaneuvered Spidey. I'm calling that a win. Yeah, Daredevil got that first one. One over and out.
Fight a bit more seriously just a few issues later though, this time in Daredevil's 16th issue, which is apparently their shared number now. Still can't believe how early they met, which is kinda crazy. The story in here is longer and quite a bit more convoluted, but the gist is that there's this bad guy named Marauder. He simply has a gang and his whole shtick is using technology to fight heroes. Spider-Man fought him a couple times but he always seems to escape. One day Marauder comes up with a genius plan, like seriously. He'll make the two heroes fight, but the way he does it is, he puts on Daredevil outfit on his henchman. Henchman throws a billy club at Spider-Man, missing his shot of course, and then just runs away and hides. Spider-Man gets upset like, why would Daredevil do that? Finds real Daredevil and simply starts beating him up. Yeah, that plan actually works and made Spider-Man go berserk on Daredevil. Sweet 60s villain plans never disappoint. Spider-Man sucker punches Daredevil right away as he finds him. Matt, while being understandably confused, tries to explain that it was not him, but Spider-Man doesn't really listen. He tries to land more strikes when Daredevil starts outmaneuvering him once again, and lands a solid one in return. The Devil once again asks to listen to him, but Spidey does not care and continues attacking, landing one more strike at Daredevil. While all of this is happening, Marauder is robbing a factory for some secret engine schematics, and the plan is working just as he intended. Daredevil is slowly starting to lose his cool a bit more with Spidey. He is recognizing that Spider-Man must be young, and he's acting a little too reckless and just won't listen to him. So, he catches him mid-air, plunging him into a chimney. Now to be fair, this is the first few years since Spider-Man was actually created, so he's still young, like for real. Not like right now when the man was already married and lived 10 lifetimes and still acts like he's a boy in college kind of shit. They continue fighting, but Daredevil seems to have turned on his game. He starts evading every strike, making Spider-Man more reckless as Peter realizes Daredevil clearly has more up his sleeve than he thought. Finally, he lands his titanium wire right behind Spidey and manages to wrap it around Peter, trapping him. This ends the first battle with Daredevil being the winner.
2-0. 2-0. Hey, apparently, yeah, I'm not that big of a Daredevil fan, but apparently he got it like that. He backing up Spidey like it's nothing.
Unfortunately, he does not
They going blow for real.
not use this to talk some sense into Spider-Man and simply tells him to be less hot-headed. Because it's comics, the fights must go on. And with that, Daredevil leaves to figure out who's behind this. Peter gets free sometime later and is still pretty upset clearly. He swings around and then somehow senses the same tingling he had when fighting Daredevil, this time next to Nelson and Murdoch. I guess Spidey sense could track people back in the day, huh? Nowadays there are Spidey tracers for that. Well, Spider-Man feels that Daredevil must be in there, but all he sees is a woman, a blind man, and poor old Foggy Nelson. He crashes into the building, accusing Foggy of being Daredevil, and clearly being a bit of a menace. Matt cannot start fighting him now, because he doesn't want to reveal his identity, so instead, him and Karen try to talk some sense into Spider-Man. Spider-Man barely believes them because Foggy, well, is a little overweight, but says if he notices something weird, he'll come back and give them hell. Funniest part is when the team asks if Spider-Man will pay for their broken window, to which Peter just replies that he'll pay if they catch him. Yeah, I'm starting to think J. Jonah Jameson was onto something in the earlier Spider-Man issues, no doubt. Regardless, Matt is starting to get a bit upset over this, understandably. But instead of going for Spider-Man, he continues investigating and actually figures out what's going on. He listens in on Marauder's plan and makes a plan of his own. He stops by at J. Jonah Jameson's office and actually teams up with the guy. He tells Jonah to air a specific story on TV. A story that will lure out both Spider-Man and Marauder to the same place, which Jonah airs on TV immediately for him. Matt hopes he can have the villain talk in front of Spider-Man and explain that he is not the one at fault. But of course the plan does not go exactly as he wanted. When Matt arrives there, Spider-Man sees him and attacks immediately. Spider-Man is immediately on the offense, and Daredevil is evading everything, even managing to land a couple of strikes in between. But Daredevil does not have enough strength to knock out Spider-Man, and he can only evade for so long. He gets winded and tries to talk, realizing he is only making Spider-Man more mad. But the second Matt stops to rest, Peter uses that opportunity to land a very solid strike. One Matt knows he cannot take again or he's done for, and as he's about to go on offense again, realizing he cannot make any more mistakes or he's done, Marauder finally shows up on the giant airship. Spider-Man says Daredevil got lucky and goes for Marauder instead. And even though he disposes of his henchman, the villain has this new amazing blinding gun, very conveniently. He shoots Spidey with it, leaving him completely helpless. And just as he's about to finish Spider-Man off, Daredevil shows up. Obviously the gun does not work on him, so he makes very short work of the villain, and well, saves the day. The story ends with Spidey leaving, being portrayed as the villain in the news, and Daredevil as the hero because Jonah prints the story. And even though Daredevil does try to explain to news people that Spider-Man was not at fault, it does not help. And well, with that it's the end. Surprisingly to me, Spider-Man does not even try to apologize to Daredevil and just leaves. But Matt
Daredevil
seems
3-0.
understandable, so I guess it's fine. And that was basically the end of round 2,
And
to which I
Spider-Man
think
had
we
that
can
one.
say Daredevil ended up barely winning. He
Two
won the
two
first
one.
fight, nearly lost the second one, but he was the one who saved the day in the end. But keep in mind, this was a Daredevil issue, so it's a little biased, don't get me wrong. Now before they fight again, I
Yeah, I'm
wanted to
giving
do
that
a
one to
nice
Spider-Man.
little moment between the two as well, which takes place only a few years later. Daredevil swings around and suffers mentally over Karen Page, how he cannot make it with her and how he blows every chance because of his superhero duties. Spidey notices Daredevil swinging by and thinks of how he envies Daredevil, how Matt is probably the luckiest guy in the world, at the same time suffering the exact same thing, but over Gwen Stacy. Note that Gwen was still alive at the time but hated Spider-Man. During this issue we're shown that personal struggles of both are very similar, and both aren't very far away from each other really, at least in their first 2 years. Overall it's a very nice parallel in my opinion. One key difference though is that Daredevil is apparently loved by the public and poor Spidey is hated, which he points out quite clearly. At least that's what Peter believes, and it really demoralizes him. By the end, they both team up to fight Namor, who's stronger than both of them and actually holds his own very well. But it was a nice little piece of bromance between the two after the first few fights, and it shows how well they can actually work together, so I
I'd
just
love
wanted
to
to
see
point
this
it
kid
out.
really
But enough.
like I'd love to see that like in real life, like a Spider-Man Daredevil versus Namor. That'd be cool to watch in like the Marvel universe. That'd be cool. That'd be cool to see. That'd be cool if they did it right. It would be cool for sure.
Enough of nice, time for the next round. The next fight rings out in the spectacular Spider-Man issue 110 in 1987, during famous and very critically acclaimed story arc that I'm sure most people know, the death of Jin the Wolf. Now it's been quite a few years at this point and both characters are full adults now. Even though their arc takes place in Spider-Man's run, all 4 issues are pretty much shared between the two characters. And the story is a classic whodunit, where a mysterious villain, Sin Eater, who is basically a mentally insane strong guy with a shotgun, started going around killing important people to these two characters. He murders Peter's friend, police detective Jim DeWolf, and Matt's friend, Judge Horace. So the two begin investigating. And here's where we can see a pretty big fundamental difference between Peter and Matt, both in distress. While Matt tries to be somewhat calm and goes undercover, or listens in on the dialogue, Spider-Man comes in with fists blazing and beats people into talking. And most of the time Peter comes in after Daredevil found out all the information already, so it seems a little excessive. Even though both characters encounter the villain, Sin Eater manages to get away every time, simply with the power of a good shotgun and innocence in the way, every time, which is crazy. Peter does not have a symbiote in this story, by the way. He's simply wearing a gift Black Cat made for him. The story concludes with two heroes finding Sin Eater right before he kills Betty Brant, Peter's first date. And this is a story where Spider-Man is somewhat off his rocker. He starts beating the guy mercilessly, and after Sin Eater goes unconscious, he continues, with an intent to kill him, of course. Daredevil interrupts him, saying it's wrong to be judge, jury, and executioner, like the Punisher, so the fight ensues. Enraged Peter is tired of Daredevil always being holier than thou, always having high moral ground, and above all, always being seen as the hero in the eyes of public. We can see Daredevil making a remark immediately that
Damn, bro, I really forget. I be forgetting that in Marvel they kill. In DC they don't kill. They do not kill in DC. It's very rare that they kill in DC. But in Marvel, hey, if you're acting up, Spidey gonna come at your head, bro. No cap.
he will likely die from one punch, as Peter is not holding back anymore. He draws Spider-Man away from people and enrages him as much as possible, making Peter more reckless and making him miss more. Finally, once in an open space, he does his bouncing billy club trick, which Peter catches, boasting about his spidey sense. And that's when Daredevil lands multiple solid punches, a dozen to be exact. That's just enough to only subdue Peter because of how strong he is, which Daredevil notices. Matt makes a remark that one mistake could have cost him his life there, but in the end he gets Spider-Man out by outsmarting him once again, and landing a dozen punches to the face, when Spider-Man didn't land a single one. And that's the end of the third round. That was a Spider-Man story, so I guess there's no bias here? I'm not sure. Later on in the story, Pete kind of makes up for what he did by saving Daredevil from a wild crowd. That was after Daredevil tried to protect Sin Eater in public court, after a crowd tried to slaughter him. Even though he called Matt an idiot friend while doing that, which is a little weird, well, regardless, Daredevil understands and the two make up. Matt reveals he knew who Peter was immediately because of his distinctive strong heartbeat, and he tells his own secret identity as well. This is officially the start of a more closer bromance, as Matt also promises to help Aunt May's close friend with a court case. This comic book has one brilliant line that gives another full-in look into both characters. At some point, Daredevil thinks to himself, does Spider-Man feel too much, or do I feel too little? Both work the same case, but while Spidey was a bit too emotional, Matt was a bit too calm, I guess. In an arc called Gang War just a few years later, Amazing Spider-Man 287, Matt works secret detail together with the government and Falcon, surprisingly, to protect Kingpin from being assassinated. And they want to make sure he can rein in all gangs that have sprung off and are causing chaos throughout the city. They had a very convoluted, somewhat weird plan, but basically the gist of the story was that Matt believes anyone deserves a fair trial, even Wilson Fisk of course, and he does not want him to die from some random assassination attempt. But the most important thing is once again, he wants Kingpin to rein in all the gangs that are starting wars throughout the city. Because when Kingpin was in charge, none of this actually happened, and a lot less people died. Peter, however, disagrees and is a little bit off hinge again. He does not like them protecting Kingpin, and it kind of adds chaos to the mix. This whole arc is a little too chaotic and seriously a bit ridiculous for my liking. The actual fight happens when Daredevil dressed up as Kingpin, so he would be assaulted instead of Fisk, and Spider-Man gets there just so they can have a fight. This time though, Spider-Man is coming off much stronger. He starts webbing up Daredevil's arms, not giving him a chance to evade, strike, or punch. And just as Matt is almost out cold for good, because Spider-Man is just giving so many hits non-stop, a sniper aims and shoots at Spider-Man, and Daredevil jumps in and reflects the bullet to save him at the last second. That did look like a hell of a beating though, so I'd give this round to Spider-Man. Matt explains everything to Peter later on, how all of this was to collect legal evidence to actually put away Kingpin, at the same time saving everyone from needless violence, including the bad guys. and how he wants to work according to the law and everything, blah blah blah. But Spider-Man was once again up there with all the morals and just wanted to deal with the criminals in a different way. I'm not 100% sure why, because Spider-Man doesn't kill, but I guess that's fine. Anyways, this whole fight I think was a little too ridiculous and I don't like this arc. But Spider-Man did get his first win technically, so we'll count that in. Next up, we have somewhat edgy.
Yeah, they say Spider-Man doesn't kill, but have you seen how he be hitting his opponents, bruh? Do you know what he be doing to his opponents, bruh? How he be webbing them up and tossing them in the air, webbing them on the walls and leaving them there, bro. Sure, bro, he doesn't kill his opponents.
90s where nothing of importance really happened. Daredevil and Spidey had a very short fight when Spidey got mind controlled, again, where Matt took a solid hit at first, but then dodged a bunch of hits and made Spider-Man snap back to reality. Earlier in the decade, Daredevil was also the one who got off his rocker a little. He faked his death and went off deep end in the new black and red armor, going after criminals a bit more rough than normal, but still not killing them, abandoning his Matt Murdock identity completely, and Peter was the one to reel him back in. He tried to help Matt with all he could and brought him back to the ground a little more, and even though a fight almost starts, Matt swings at him and Peter grabs him by the throat. This Spider-Man is a lot less hot-headed now, and immediately calms the situation down. He brought Daredevil down from his high horse and actually teamed up with him instead of fighting him this time. Together they went to kick All Man's ass. And that was it. 90s for comics was a very strange decade, but Spider-Man is surprisingly more mature now, so I really like it. And
Yeah,
finally we're moving
I
to
can't, I
modern
can't have
day.
it with the
And by
kiddish
that I mean
Spider-Man.
2000.
I get it, in the beginning he's a teen, high school or whatever, maybe college, but I don't know, man. Kid Spider-Man is not it. That adult Spider-Man, the one who's been on missions for real, the one who gets active, yeah, I mess with that one.
And onwards. And Spider-Man and Daredevil mostly stopped fighting during this era completely. The two shared a lot of stories together, but now they see eye to eye almost always. Primarily from what I can see due to Spider-Man being a little more calm-headed, funny enough, comparing to wild 70s and 80s. Both characters are now doing things more in line with law rather than wanting to beat up criminals senselessly, like Spider-Man did during Black Suit era, or Daredevil during his own Black Suit era. They help Black Cat by clearing her off of a crime she did not commit, during which they go through a lot of adventures together that was awesome. And Daredevil ends up dating Black Cat surprisingly, while poor old Spider-Man is left alone. Yeah, we're getting closer to Spider-Man getting cooked by everyone era. There was also a very gritty story about dealing with a new Yakuza gang, where Spider-Man and Daredevil also teamed up with Iron Fist and Luke Cage. This was a full-on street-level crime drama that is hard to forget. Finally, an absolutely amazing team-up was them infiltrating a secret casino and retrieving hidden files, Secret Spy Casino Royale style, and that was one of the best team-ups they've ever had, honestly. And overall, seeing these two in comics in the past 2 decades is just a pure joy. Some of the best comics I've ever read. Now, there was a Shadowland arc when Daredevil was infused with the magic of the hand, became possessed, and fought the Avengers, but he was not himself at all, and was way over the power level of anyone in these fights, Spider-Man included. And finally, we're coming to one of the more recent runs, and the last known fight between Spider-Man and Daredevil as far as
I
I
love
know.
that suit.
And these are one of the best comics I've ever read in the past couple of years. So let's get on with it. The story premise is simple, but genius in my opinion. You know how superheroes always beat criminals up senseless? Like Batman beating a thug for 5 minutes straight with every punch landing on their head? Or Spider-Man sometimes punching people so hard they fly up into
That's
the
what I'm
air?
saying.
Like, let's be honest, legit, these punches would kill a man immediately. And after all the memes, someone actually decided to write a story about that. That's exactly what happened in Daredevil 2019 run. When Matt simply missed his mark just a little, it was far enough to kill a simple criminal. That was the moment Matt's life changed forever. He killed a small-time thug, and there's no way back. Of course he did not believe it at first, thought it was all a plan of Kingpin to drive him insane or something. But it did really happen, and he was at fault. And that put Matt into deep depression. His fellow supes like Luke Cage and Iron Fist calmed him down, saying that it happens to everyone, and they had it happen to them too, but that did not really help much. And then later same night, Spider-Man arrives, who is not happy. He tells Matt to basically quit. Daredevil lost his edge, he says, and he might actually be a danger to people around him now. And this is where Matt's perception of Spidey actually shows. Matt generally admires Spider-Man. In fact, he considers Peter to be the best superhero out of all of them. And Peter bringing him down like that, well, that was the breaking point for Matt. Spider-Man threatens that if he ever sees Matt do superhero stuff again, he will come back, and Daredevil will regret it. And so Matt completely quits being a superhero. For a pretty long time from what I remember, about a year at least. But of course later on in the story Matt comes back and redeems himself. He takes down an entire Sinister Six on his own in the middle of New York, saving countless lives. Basically reaching next level upgrade in his own way, mentally and physically. After the fight, Spidey's back and is ready to fight. He told Matt to stay down and he didn't. But Matt's done with that. He is no longer insecure and he knows that his mistakes don't define him. It's what he does about them is what matters. And he's going to turn himself into the police. But he's not gonna stop being Daredevil no matter what. Spider-Man doesn't want to listen and doesn't want to back down. So Matt suits up and tells Peter to go ahead and try. Take him on, see who wins. Even though he just came back from a fight and knows he probably cannot take it. Matt also points out that Spider-Man is currently breaking and entering in his apartment, so he has the right to kick his ass if he wants. And that last line actually works. Peter gets suppressed and decides to leave, saying he will come back. This story doesn't really reach a fight though. Later on Peter apologizes and tells Matt he's been going through hell as well, and the two make up. This was not a physical fight, but a fight nonetheless, and I think it's miles better than most
It's
fights
always
we've
good
seen
to
so
see.
far.
You know, they go at it, but at the end of the day, hey man, they're bros. They're bros and they work together. They're gonna make up, get a little better, learn from it, you know.
It does not stop there though. Last fight, as far as I know, happens a couple years later, and this one is a full-on physical fight alright. Matt assembled his own fighting clan to defeat the evil clan of the Hand once and for all. At that time, Hand actually pronounced Punisher as their god and leader, and revived his wife and children. In return, he was serving as their king basically. But during the final culmination, Avengers drop by, Spider-Man included, and that's when Matt and Spidey have a full-on fight. Note that at that time, Matt is physically enhanced and he's stronger than normal. Nevertheless, he is pretty beat up and starts losing at first, missing a punch here and there. He recognizes that Spider-Man is holding back unlike last time, and this is why he's still alive. And he knows he needs to get high ground fast. Matt mentions that even though Spidey is the best superhero and stronger than him, he is naive. And without the time on his side, Daredevil ends up tricking Spider-Man. He pretends to give up, saying that he can no longer take any of it, and when Spider-Man gets close enough, he takes his web cartridges, breaks them, and unleashes all of that back on Peter. Then he applies just enough pressure to knock Peter out, mentioning that he almost broke his fingers doing that. And that's the fight! Both characters had a very long and at times convoluted journey throughout the years, but despite everything they share a great respect to each other, and after this fight they are once again friends in comics, and are always ready to help each other at the time of need. When it comes to them actually fighting, let's be honest, Spider-Man is of course stronger, and technically should be able to defeat Daredevil most times, but as we can see he doesn't. In most of these fights, Matt won by simply thinking way ahead. Remember, he's a very good lawyer after all. And we know that Spidey tends to be kind and often holds back, just like he did in the last fight. The final reason why Daredevil won in most tussles is because Matt is also portrayed as the underdog. He's simply at a disadvantage against Spidey, almost always, and the writer making the comic wants the underdog to win despite all odds, just like we do. So, there's that.
Well, I was rooting for Spidey, but I can see the cases in which Daredevil wins, you know. But but yeah, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for stopping by. Like, comment, subscribe. Trying to grow this channel. Trying to become a community. So, you know, if you want to stay and you want to join that community, I appreciate it. Thank you.